Hello, my name is marinabolser, and today we're going to be going over some LGBTQ or LGBTQIA plus issues, definitions, terminology. Hopefully, I'm going to answer a few of your questions. I will also include some more resources in the description of this YouTube video, as well as my own email if you'd like to email me with more questions. Let's go ahead and get started. So, LGBTQIA plus. Now, this is quite a long acronym, but we're just going to go ahead and break it down, hopefully make it a little bit easier to understand. So L stands for lesbian, G is for gay, B is for bisexual, T is for transgender, Q is for queer, I is for intersex, and A can stand for either asexual or ally. An ally is simply a straight or heterosexual person who advocates for and supports the LGBTQIA plus population. And the reason we add the plus is because there are many, many identities, and putting them all together in one acronym would get quite confusing and look even a little more intimidating than this one. So just a note before we begin, LGBTQIA plus issues are not new. These people have existed throughout history and across cultures. It simply seems more common today because LGBTQIA people have more rights than in the past. Stigma is less. Of course, there is still stigma, but it could be considered less than in, for example, the 1800s, the 1700s. So people feel more comfortable coming out and expressing themselves. Coming out just means you start telling people in your life and the general people you encounter that you are gay or lesbian or LGBTQIA+. Even 20 or 30 years ago, somebody might not have had the terminology to describe what they were feeling or realize that anybody else felt that way. So that is why it seems more common today, especially among children. Validating a person's identity when they are LGBTQIA+ and or sexuality is absolutely crucial to lowering the rates of mental health conditions and suicide in this population. NAMI states, or the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, states that mental health conditions are actually twice as high in LGBTQIA plus populations than in heterosexual ones. So decreasing that stigma even more, making people more accepting is absolutely going to reduce those rates of mental health conditions and suicide rates among people who are LGBTQIA+, which is why I think presentations are so important like this. First, through understanding can come acceptance. So most of the population is straight, which means attracted to the opposite gender. For example, a woman attracted to a man or a man attracted to a woman. Heterosexual can be interchanged with straight. Cisgender, this might be a new term for some of you. That means that your body matches the gender that you feel like or that you identify as, who that you know you are. So I am cisgendered because I have the body of a woman and I feel like a woman. I know that I am a woman. So sexuality versus identity. Let me just move my screen here. Sexuality is who you're attracted to, while identity is who you are. For example, somebody could be attracted to men, that's their sexuality, and they could identify as a woman. That's who they are. That's who they've always known that they've been. Somebody else could be attracted to men, that's their sexuality, and identify as a man. That's who they are. So let's go ahead and start with the L. L stands for lesbian. And the term lesbian describes a woman who is attracted to emotionally and or physically to other women. Lesbians are attracted to other women, that's their sexuality, but also identify as women. That's who they are. So some common misconceptions. While some lesbians choose to present very masculine, they might cut their hair short or wear masculine clothing. And other lesbians might choose to identify in a more feminine way, like long hair, feminine clothing. That does not mean that a masculine lesbian and a feminine lesbian have to match up. There isn't necessarily a man in the relationship and a woman in the relationship. They're both women, and they are both experiencing a female to female relationship. And generally, lesbians are not women who have had bad experiences with men. They've generally felt this attraction to other women since they were very young. And that goes for everything I'm about to go over. While for many people, they don't realize until later in life how they've been feeling, for other people, they have known since they were very, very young that they were this way. So gay, G is for gay. The term gay describes a person who is attracted emotionally and or physically to somebody of the same gender. And while gay is an umbrella term for all genders, it is often used in reference to gay men. A gay man is someone who is attracted to men and identifies as a man. And just as it goes for lesbians as well, in a gay relationship, one partner is not the man, one partner is not the woman. They are both men, individual men experiencing a male to male relationship. And not all gay men are feminine, despite this stereotype that goes along when you hear the word gay. Some men who are gay present like they're straight. They can be very masculine. I think there's a football player who recently came out as gay. I don't remember his name, but he's very masculine. He's a football player. Playing football is one of the most masculine things you can do. He's strong and all that stuff. So you can't tell that someone is gay just by looking at them. You can't even tell if someone is lesbian or transgender just by looking at them. Bisexual, B is for bisexual. So a person who is bisexual is attracted to both men and women. They can be a woman or a man. Some common misconceptions: bisexual people are not on a stepping stone to being fully gay or just only experiencing attraction to one other gender. They're not necessarily just trying it on for size. Bisexuality is a real phenomenon that many people experience, again, documented across cultures and throughout history. Transgender, that's T. The term transgender describes a person whose gender identity, who they are, and or gender expression, how they present to the world, does not match their assigned sex at birth or their body. A transgender person can be straight, gay, lesbian, or bisexual, or pansexual, which we'll go over later. Just like any other person can be straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, or pansexual. They can identify as a man or a woman. That's who they are. That's who they've always known that they've been. Transgender people generally want to be called by the pronouns of the gender they identify as, not the pronouns of their physical body. If you're not sure, it is usually considered respectful to ask. Additionally, introducing yourself with your own pronouns can also be considered to be respectful, simply because it creates space where the other person seems comfortable telling you their pronouns. And some common misconceptions: transgender people do not want to be the other gender. They are the other gender. There has been tons and tons of research done from many different sources saying how, so the brain is sexually dimorphic in some structures, which means that some structures are different for men and women. And for transgender people, those structures in the brain, some of those structures are closer in size to the gender that they identify as than the gender that their body is, or the sex that their body is. And this has been documented even before puberty in children. So it's scientifically backed that transgender people don't want to be the other gender. It's not a mental illness. Their bodies just don't match. Queer. So queer is a term used by some people, particularly younger people, whose sexual orientation is not exclusively heterosexual. It's basically an umbrella term that refers to any person who has a sexuality that is not just towards the opposite gender. It's still viewed by some as derogatory, but like I said, the younger generation is kind of taking it back, using it to empower themselves. If you are a straight person, it might not be the best idea to just come out and say, hey, you're queer, simply because that might be taken the wrong way. But for many LGBTQIA people, it is a term that is being taken back. And if somebody in a social situation uses it, it's probably okay for you to use it as well. That might not hurt to ask. Intersex, I. So intersex describes a person born with sex characteristics that are not typical for male or female bodies, or they might have both sex characteristics. Sex characteristics are physical features relating to sex. Those could be chromosomes, genitals, hormones, or other reproductive anatomy, as well as secondary features that might emerge from puberty. Intersex is kind of an umbrella term. Intersex characteristics and traits are not always apparent or identified at birth. Whew, that was a long definition. Basically, intersex people are people who do not fit into that gender binary. Binary means two. Basically, the gender binary is men and women. So intersex people are something in between man and woman, something outside of that gender binary. Intersex people can have any sexuality, and they can identify as a man, a woman, or something completely outside that binary. They could just exist as a person and choose not to identify as a man or a woman because that's not what they feel like. So 1.7% of the population is intersex, and 2% of the population is born with naturally red hair. This goes for worldwide. So you've definitely had a conversation with somebody who is intersex as many times as you've had a conversation with somebody with naturally red hair. It's quite interesting. And it's sort of this underground thing that people don't really talk about. So raising awareness of intersex issues, again, can help lower mental health conditions among this population. So you can't see here, but this stands for, the A stands for asexual. So asexual describes a person who is not sexually attracted to others and has no desire or little desire to engage in sexual behavior. An asexual person can identify as any gender. It could be a man, a woman, transgender, or something in between outside that binary. Some common misconceptions. So asexual people can have fulfilling romantic relationships. Just because they don't experience sexual attraction, that doesn't mean they cannot experience romantic attraction. However, some asexual people don't experience either. Each asexual person, as this goes for everything I've covered, each person as an individual is an individual and experiences their sexuality or identity differently. Non-binary. Now I know this one can be a bit confusing. So a person who is non-binary describes someone, or a person who is non-binary is someone whose gender identity falls outside the two gender construct, that binary that we talked about earlier, male or female. For example, non-binary can describe an individual whose gender changes over time, who does not identify as male or female, or associates with elements of both genders. Simply, they don't identify as just a man or just a woman. It could be something outside of that. They could be both. In the same way that I explained how intersex people who have bodies of both men and women or something completely outside of that feel like they might not fit into the category of man or woman, non-binary people, while their bodies are usually male or female, although that's not a hard and fast rule, feel that way. They know that they are not a man or a woman, or that they are both, which I know can be a bit hard to understand, but many people identify just as people outside the gender binary. And generally, non-binary people would like to be referred to as they or them. Again, not a hard and fast rule. It's always or generally okay to ask. And again, if you introduce yourself as, hello, I'm Marina, my pronouns are she, her, that presents a space where the other person can feel comfortable saying, hi, my name's Jack, my pronouns are they, them. Or somebody might choose a feminine name, masculine name, something between. Again, different for every person. So some common misconceptions: non-binary people aren't really making it up. There are documented instances of non-binary people throughout history and across cultures, and I'm going to go over this again and again and again. This isn't a new thing. This isn't just a trend. It's since people have been around, there have been people who are gay and lesbian and transgender and non-binary. It's existed forever. While some people feel like they're the same gender as their body, like me, I have the body of a woman and I feel like a woman. I've always known that I was a woman. Some people might have a different experience. For example, if I were non-binary, I would have the body of a woman, but I might think I feel like both genders, or I feel like something completely different. And that's who I know who I am. I know that. I don't just want to try it on for size. I know that, in the same way that I personally know that I'm a woman. So consider intersex people and non-binary people as examples of how some people exist outside that gender binary, which I know can be a bit of a difficult concept to conceptualize when you first are introduced to it. But I just ask you to consider how that might be a way that some people live their lives. It might be a way that some people feel, how they have always known that they are. Pansexual. Not attracted to pants. So many people make this joke. So pansexual does not mean attracted to pants. It describes a person who is attracted to or who has the potential to be attracted to people of any gender or gender identity. A person who is pansexual could be attracted to a man, woman, transgender person, intersex person, or non-binary person. They can identify as any gender. So in the same way that pandemic means all over the world, everywhere, encompasses everything, a person who is pansexual has the potential to be attracted to a person who is anything, a non-binary person, a man, woman, transgender person, intersex person. Across the gender spectrum, they can be attracted to anybody across that gender spectrum. Let's review. So I know that we went over a lot of information, so I'm just going to go over the basics one more time. A lesbian is a woman who is attracted to another woman. Someone who is gay is someone who is attracted to the same gender. For example, a man who is attracted to another man. Someone who is bisexual is attracted to men and women. Someone who is transgender is someone who identifies as the opposite gender than their body. Someone who is queer, it's an umbrella term for someone whose sexuality is not exclusively heterosexual or straight. Someone born with the sex characteristics of both a male and a female could be called intersex. Someone who is asexual is somebody who does not experience sexual attraction or very little. And someone who is non-binary is somebody who does not exist within that gender binary, someone who does not identify as a man or a woman. And finally, someone who is pansexual is someone who is attracted to a person or has the potential to be attracted to a person of any gender across that gender spectrum. Okay, so please feel free to answer or to ask me any questions that hopefully I can answer. There are no stupid questions. I know this can be a new topic for many people and it's quite a bit of information. So I encourage you to ask anything that you might be wondering about. I will also provide resources in the description down below in case you'd like to check those out on your own time as well. And thank you so much for being open to listening. That is the most important part, I think. Again, from understanding and openness comes acceptance. And hopefully your new knowledge will help LGBTQIA+ people feel more comfortable and safe. So thank you so much for listening.